Commissioners and attendees. Thank you very much. My name is Lisa Hansen. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the Assistant Director for Arizona Homeland Security. And my presentation today is basically an update of where we're at with Arizona Homeland Security and the current grants and upcoming grants. Currently, the 2010 period of performance for grants, our period of performance is ending on 9/30/11. So reallocations are in process for those grants if extensions have not been granted to the extending grants. The 2011 grants, the period of performance on those, we're about halfway through. So grants for that period of performance will end on September the 30th of 12. The 2012 grant guidance, guess what? It's releasing on Friday. So we should know dollars for what we'll be looking for in this upcoming grant year this coming Friday. There's an additional information. We'll talk about the 2013 budget, and there was a presentation yesterday that's made towards the 2013 budget, and we'll talk about that. We had grant informational seminars in the South, Central, and in Flagstaff the week of February the 20th.
Okay.
Is that Dan?
Yes, I've reconnected.
Thank you, Dan.
Hi, Dan. The grant applications for the 2012 grant application process are due to Arizona Homeland Security by 5 o'clock on March the 2nd of just next month. The tentative period of performance for that funding cycle will be October 1 through September the 30th of 2013, which is a 12-month period of performance. Just to kind of give you an overview of where the grants have gone, here's a little bit of history from 2009, 10, and then 11, and we will find out what 12 numbers are. You can see a significant reduction in the Homeland Security Grant Program, the Phoenix-Uwasi, and unfortunately the Tucson-Uwasi in 2011 became an unfunded Uwasi at that point. So we took a significant hit, about a 50% cut in the SHISCAB program. And then the Phoenix-Uwasi took a significant hit. Tucson, 100%. MMRS and Citizen Corps pretty much held strong. The Operation Stone Garden, we'll talk about that. They received approximately $13 million, which was consistent from the previous year. In relationship to the grant program, we have what's called the State Preparedness Report, the SPR. It's taken a few different life forms over the last several years. The newest version, we received a draft of that in the November timeframe. Arizona Homeland Security put together and completed this mission to the federal government by the due date in December of 2011. Upcoming for this year is there is a new tool or a revised tool that will come out, and it should be out in about June of 2012. The intent behind that is we will submit that to stakeholders and county level submissions, so every county will be completing something very similar. Many of you that have participated in past years, we've done a target capabilities assessment. This basically is that. The target capabilities is being replaced with what's called the core capabilities. And the core capabilities is embedded within the SPR tool. So that assessment is forthcoming. At the workshops that we had for the grant seminars, we encourage every stakeholder. If the stakeholder is applying for grant funds, they're applying for funds to build the capabilities and the gaps that we've identified in these tools. So if they're seeking money, they should be a part of the process as far as building what our SPR looks like. 2012 grant guidance. Yesterday there was a presentation that was made by Secretary Napolitano in reference to the vision and grant guidance for this upcoming year. So here's some insights that we received yesterday. The 2012 grant guidance, which we said is supposed to be released on this Friday, which will show us the dollars, is going to begin the transition from 16 separate grant programs to a more streamlined model. It will implement a new period of performance at the state level, which previously had been at 3 years and reduced it to 2 years. We currently provide our stakeholders with a 12-month period of performance with a possibility of extensions, but at the federal level, the concept and idea of drawing down those funds is being played through in our new project. So the federal focus on drawdowns on current funds. in addition to drawing down those current funds, the federal extensions that were previously given to grants are coming to a day of no more. The fiscal year 8 and 9 must be expended by September the 30th of 2012, and it says must, very highlighted that it is changing forms. The new grant that we're looking at for 2013 is a complete rewrite. So when we talked about streamlining the process from 16 grants down to 1, this is it is the National Preparedness Grant Program, NPGP. So that's going to take a lot of change between the 12 process and the 13 process. It's going to focus on supporting all of the changes that actually support PPD 8. It helps to support Congress's request for information and how are we pulling down the dollars and how do they support our capabilities. In addition to that, we know that it's going to be an allocation-based and a competitive-based grant. But what we don't know is how much is going to be allocation-based and how much is going to be competitive. That's still unknown at this time. The National Preparedness Grant Program will also focus on what's called the DARA, which is the Threat Hazardous Identification and Risk Assessment. Right now the federal government has not released the requirements for that, but Arizona Homeland Security is preparing for that, and we've already had numerous work sessions to get prepared for that. So as soon as the requirements drop, we will be writing that THERA and submitting that to the federal government. Changes from the previous years. And this is directly off of the presentation that was provided by Janet Napolitano. Basically, it's evaluating national preparedness capabilities by focusing on regional and national capabilities and assets. What this is a significant change is in historically being a part of the EMAC, the compact for Arizona, was advised and recommended by Arizona Homeland Security and by the federal government. In the 2013 process, we will see that as a mandatory. Just like NIMSCAST is mandatory, the EMAC will be mandatory. So you will see a significant drive on educating stakeholders and getting them focused on joining that EMAC, because all of the funding and the capabilities that are supported with 2013 will need to be eligible for deployment statewide or nationwide. Now we'll talk about just some interoperability grants. PSIC grant was awarded in 2007. It was $17.7 million. To date, $15.8 million has been reimbursed. Federal legislation approved an extension for the period of performance on that. We, the state of Arizona, requested that extension, and Phoenix currently has an extension until 5/31 of 12, of which they will be completing that and 100% reimbursing that grant. So it's well underway to its completion and fruition on that PSIC $17.7 million. The BID-P grant, the Border Interoperability Demonstration Program, UMA received just under $4 million. That's actually a grant that's awarded in $3 amounts over a 3-year period. So they've received the first funding, which was about $1.5 million, and we just recently in January received the EHP approval for that. So we are marching down the road with that, and it seems to be moving 100% on track. So for interoperability, how does interoperability tie to the Homeland Security Grant Program? In 2011, 29% of all the grant funds were dedicated towards interoperability projects. 29% of all the grant funding was dedicated. That's significant. We relate a big portion of that to the requirements for narrowbanding. And we see the needs and the concepts behind that, and so do the RACs that make recommendations in the UASI for this. What was interesting was the direct tribal award. 65% of the funding that was received to the 3 tribes, which we consider Fort Mojave to be an Arizona tribe, was 65% of their funding that was awarded in 2011 focused on interoperability solutions. Just to kind of give you, here's a picture and a breakdown of the funding streams. SHISHGAP funding stream The Homeland Security Grant Program was awarded $6.6 million, and 34% of that was focused on interoperability. Phoenix Uwasi was about 1%. The Operation Stone Garden Grant, which is along the southern border, which is predominantly focuses on boots on the ground, first responders assisting Border Patrol with their mission on border security. Still, 14% of that funding stream is focused on interoperability solutions along the border. The direct tribal funding, which we talked about, was 65% focused on this, and of course the BIP was 100% focused on interoperability solutions. So we will continue to strive and assist the stakeholders on moving forward with interoperability. And we will be updating everyone as far as the 2012 draft funding cycle, which will come out. Funding announcements will be released on Friday, and we will be having funding RAC meetings shortly hereafter. Those will be on schedule for later in March and early April will be the RAC funding meetings to do recommendations for the 2012 funding cycle. Any questions?
Thank you. Lisa Meyerson, PSIC. In terms of the EMAP, do you have any sense of where we are in terms of the number of jurisdictions within Arizona that are currently members of the EMAP?
The EMAP process is actually administered by the Arizona Department of Emergency Management, and MAP Parks is responsible for that process. I do not have those numbers offhand, but I can add those from MAP Parks. We'll be working with him over the next upcoming months to solidify that and share that information with all of our stakeholders.
And second question would be, I noticed AZPSIC, and we've heard it's not being funded again, but I didn't notice it up there for some of the past years. That's because that's folded into SHISHTAP?
The AZPSIC was a funding stream that did not receive funding in the past year. We've got some ongoing grants that we're reimbursing today, but we do not anticipate seeing any new funding coming out for that program. The eligibility to apply for concepts allowable under AZPSIC may be applied for under the State Homeland Security Grant Program as a consolidated process.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.